When it comes to maritime travel, there have been thousands of ships during the passage of time. Spanning these time periods, from when the pharaohs ruled Egypt to the Vikings' conquest to the modern-day navies and cargo ships. Of these vessels, many have left their mark in history. The USS Constitution, the SS Edmund Fitzgerald, the Sultana, and the Cutty Sark are a few that come to mind. Yet even among these great ships, there are vessels that become iconic. These ships take on legendary status. The R.M.S. TITANIC is such a vessel. In present day, you can travel to all four corners of the earth and mention the name Titanic. Chances are, at least someone will know the name, if not the whole story. Or someone they know will have heard of it, or is familiar with the name of the iconic ship. The Titanic was the beginning of a huge ship era. Her beauty and luxury have never been duplicated since. Today's Queen of the North Atlantic is the Queen Mary II. She is much larger than Titanic and can carry more passengers. The Queen Mary II is a beautiful ocean liner. However, in my opinion, she cannot even compare to the beauty of the R.M.S. Titanic. The whole Titanic idea was thought up by J. Bruce Ismay, who is the chairman of the White Star Line, and William J. Peary, who was the managing director at Harland & Wolff. At the time, the R.M.S. Mauritania and the R.M.S. Lusitania were dominating the transatlantic passenger trade, and White Star was looking to regain the top spot that they enjoyed while they had the likes of the R.M.S. Baltic, the Kedrick, and the Adriatic. They would entrust Thomas Andrews with the plans to design three mighty ships. The first would be the R.M.S. Olympic, followed by the R.M.S. Titanic, and finally, the R.M.S. Britannic. Overseeing a team of draftsmen, Thomas Andrews would assemble the plans that would eventually be given to Harland & Wolff shipyards. In fact, Thomas Andrews would be on the Titanic's maiden voyage because William J. Peary would become too ill to make the journey. Once the plans were delivered, the Titanic would become a reality. It would begin to take shape. It would take a working crew of 10,000 workers to complete her hull. The ship would have 15 watertight bulkheads as well as watertight doors that could be closed from the bridge in the event of emergencies. These features were state-of-the-art at the time. Thousands of steel plates, 1 inch thick, were riveted to her frame. In excess of 3 million rivets would be used to secure them all. Titanic's yard number would be 401, and later her call letters would be MCY. She would be launched on May 31st, 1911 in front of a crowd of 100,000 spectators, and the tickets were sold for the event. After using up more than 22 tons of tallow and soap, Titanic would glide into the water for the first time. She would then be fitted out for the next 10 months. When finished, the Titanic would be 882 feet 8 inches long, 92.5 feet wide. Fully loaded, she could carry 3,547 passengers and crew. The Titanic would have over 2,000 portholes. These ranged in different sizes and were used for letting in light in parts of the ship, as well as cooling or venting the inside rooms. Their propulsion machinery was also built on a massive scale. Needing to move a 42,000-ton Titanic was no small task. She would have 6 boiler rooms, and these were 29 boilers that would be fueled by 157 furnaces that were coal-fed. Coal workers, or the Black Gang as they were known, were able to keep track of which furnace needed coal. Coal consumption would be predetermined, and every 7 minutes an alarm would indicate how much coal was needed for that particular fire furnace number. These boilers would power more than just the engines. They would provide the electricity throughout the ship as well. One of Titanic's main features would be her forward grand staircase. It would extend from the boat deck down to the Turkish bath and the swimming pool on F deck. It was made of beautifully carved wood and topped off with a glass dome at the top that allowed natural light to enter the ship. There was also a chandelier in the center of it for lighting at night. And on landing at A deck, there was the iconic Honor and Glory crowing time clock. The letters R.M.S. would stand for Royal Mail Steamer. The Titanic would have a mailroom, which would be manned by 5 postal workers. In fact, when Titanic sank, she was carrying 3,364 bags of mail. At around 12 o'clock on Wednesday, April 10th, 1912, the R.M.S. Titanic would leave port on her maiden voyage. She would be bound for Cherbourg and Queenstown before heading out to the North Atlantic to New York City. But sadly, the people waiting in New York to see her dock would be greatly disappointed, for despite a more southerly course to avoid the ice field, she would end up striking an iceberg. She was ordered full speed ahead, hoping to beat Olympics time during her maiden voyage across the North Atlantic. That, coupled with clear and calm night with a sea that was as smooth as glass, produced no waves to warn of the iceberg. Titanic's rudder was also a factor, as it was too small to turn the ship at that speed before hitting the iceberg. And in the early morning hours of April 15, 1912, the R.M.S. Titanic would slip beneath the waves, leaving nothing but a few lifeboats behind. It would be 80 years until she would be discovered in her deep North Atlantic grave. In September of 1985, Robert Ballard would discover the R.M.S. Titanic wreck site. The camera would first show a boiler on the floor of the ocean nearly 2.5 miles down, giving the team on the surface confirmation of their discovery. At that depth, the ocean was a crushing force of almost 6,000 pounds per square inch. The camera footage at the time was grainy and blurry. Dr. Ballard would return with his crew in 1986 for a more extensive survey of the wreck site. He would not, however, file for ownership. His desire to leave the site intact as a grave was factored into his decision. Currently, a group called R.M.S. Titanic Incorporated now owns the ship and has brought up countless numbers of artifacts from the site. As technological advancements were made, much clearer footage and photos were taken of Titanic. One of the artifacts recovered is actually the subject of this video. The recovery of a large section of Titanic's starboard side will be brought up from the wreck site. The 26 feet wide by 20 feet high 20-ton section was first discovered in 1994. It would be decided to recover the section. 2 years in the planning, the first attempt to raise the section would come in 1996. Airbags containing diesel fuel would be put into the bags because it would be lighter than the water and it would be buoyant. And because it was a liquid, it would not implode under the immense stress the depths have. These bags would be attached to strapping that would lift the section. However, as close as 200 feet from the surface, the strapping would fail. That, along with the severe weather, would hamper the recovery effort. The section would again plunge almost 2.5 miles below the surface of the water and come to rest upright as the bottom would cut into the seabed. In 1998, a section would be raised and recovered successfully by using reinforced strapping and 6 flotation bags that would bring it to the surface before a crane would hoist it onto the deck of the ship. This section of the Titanic would see the sunlight dancing over the water droplets for the first time in 86 years. The section could not be allowed to dry because of the corrosive nature of the seawater, and it had to be removed. It would first be placed in a freshwater bath. This process would be known as desalinization. All corrosive materials had to be removed from the steel to ensure its integrity. Once desalinization was complete, the piece was hung up and blasted with water. This would remove the corrosion and other contaminants from the surface of the metal. Once that was complete, the surface would again be treated, this time with tannic acid and water. Lastly, a coat of protective wax was applied to the entire surface of the metal. This would seal it and protect it against harmful elements that may damage it. The wax would also halt further deterioration of the steel. The restoration and preservation is an ongoing process, the most recent treatment coming in 2012. Today, the large section of the ship is a permanent part of the Titanic exhibit in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Luxor. R.M.S. Titanic is the current owner of the section and all of the recovered artifacts.